Hello, everybody. Welcome to the November 2021 Steeltoe open source community meeting. This document is for tracking the notes for this meeting and all of our other meetings. Be sure to include a link to it in our YouTube posting. There's a whole lot of useful links at the top of the document. Get started with the Steeltoe repos, where our samples are, the documentation, initializer, and how that's built. So today we'll go ahead and get right into it. You may have noticed that I'm not Jason Knickie. We've had a change in management. He's moved over to a different team within Spring. So I'll be the engineering lead on the team going forward. And that's really the
Congratulations, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you. That's probably our only significant announcement at this point in time. There's always a link to any good first issues or issues that we would like some help with if you're looking to get started with Steeltoe or contribute to it. We've been working on some issues around .NET 6 compatibility, given that it launched yesterday. The launch event for it is .NET Conf, which is happening right now. So be sure to check out the recordings from that. The other items that we're going to be including in an upcoming 3.1.2 release would be some smaller bug fixes for Eureka and some null reference issues with the DB migrations endpoint in actuators. Upcoming for Steeltoe 3.2, we'll be doing some work with service discovery. It's kind of checking in with Spring Cloud Discovery projects, making sure that we've got all the relevant features working on both sides. And just doing any other miscellaneous updates to make sure we're following best practices with Microsoft libraries and dependency injection and all of this fun stuff that comes with that. Additionally, there have been a lot of changes in the metrics space. And Daniel, do you think you could give us a quick overview of what's going on over there?
Yeah, with metrics, we had the 3.x version depending on the Open Telemetry project, which was then in alpha/beta. So with their plans coming along, they moved most of the instrumentation API into .NET 6, they being Microsoft, and the Open Telemetry team uses these or is compatible with these changes. So we're working towards using the .NET API within Steeltoe to instrument our own stuff, and then have a pathway to different backends and try and resolve some of the pain around using the Open Telemetry implementation. So there'll be a lot of updates in this space. So we're actively working towards that, towards the next release. So that's kind of vague, but that's what we have right now. So I don't know, Tim, if you want to add anything else to it. But that's what I have as far as an update.
I guess one other full disclosure thing we might want to add is that the Open Telemetry dependency that we have, unfortunately, is restricting us to using a version of Microsoft extensions logging that is less than 6.0. So that is causing a little bit of heartburn for us with some of our testing and our other dependencies. So that might affect how we get, I don't know if it's going to be possible to get full-blown compatibility with .NET 6.0 for any of the previous patch releases. So we might have to wait for Daniel's work with metrics and dealing with that situation with the Open Telemetry dependencies in order to have a fully compatible version of Steeltoe that works with .NET 6.0. We don't have anything to share on this front, but a totally separate issue. We now have at least one F# template that it's working its way through the initializer ecosystem. So if F# is something you care about, we'd love to get some feedback. Please find us on Slack or on GitHub, and we'd love to get some feedback on that. We already mentioned .NET Conf and .NET 6 coming out. I think that's about all we've got for upcoming events for the next couple of months that we're following. The next one of these meetings isn't going to be until next year. So hopefully we'll have some more interesting things to share at that point. Anyone open up to the community for any other discussions or feedback or anything else?
So I spent some time with streams, and I'm wondering if in the future, there's going to be more focus in building this out, or are you guys kind of happy where it's at, and until you have reason to you just kind of go with what you got?
So can you be any more specific about what you'd be looking for there?
Well, to be quite frank, is once I got into it, and I spent a lot of time with it, everything in streams, especially the examples and all that, are so basic that they just weren't very applicable to like real world stuff. And they just kind of, I'll say this in as nice a way as possible, they cut a lot of corners and just like, oh, just throw this up there and, kind of assume things. An example is when you have a stream processor, and so you get some message off the bus and you want to do something with the message, all of the examples just work on the message right there in that little detached static method. And that's not very usable because you're going to be doing that somewhere else, right? There's a detachment of getting or watching for the message and then getting that message and then providing the message back to the greater application or the greater process. None of the examples go really anywhere near this type of thing. They all just make it super simple and just, we got some hello world thing, let's tweak periods over to dashes and then continue on, something like that. So there's that. Then there's also just implementing this thing with all the annotations or attributes. And, once you dig into that, it's just abstraction after abstraction after abstraction. And so it makes it very difficult to extend it. And, like, okay, I need to do some more things here, or I need to set up this in a custom way, or the stream host is really not doing it for me. I want to integrate this a little bit more with my overall application. So it's like doing those things. It's just very, very difficult to do. There are not really examples to get any advanced stuff, and there's just the documents. Once you get into it, and like you spend a few hours playing with streams, the documents start to make sense because I understand what some of the words are and what context they're in and what they're talking about. When I read that documentation, just wanting to learn from start, it was like Greek. But once I got into it and I saw what these things were and kind of got hands-on with it, and this may just be my learning curve, then the document started making sense. And I probably read the big one, I probably read that whole thing top to bottom 5 times. And finally, it started making sense. In the end, I ended up not going with Steeltoe streams. I ended up going with another library because getting started was just so difficult. The implementation was so contrived. There were so many things that I had to build out. And it's like, I don't have one message that I'm trying to consume. I have 17 different processors of 17 different types of messages, right? And I think that's kind of real world examples. So anyway, that's why I'm asking is streams, are you guys you got it out there, you got it going, and then if people show demand to use it, then, you'll continue on with it? Or is it like, we want to continue to get this thing right and really build it out?
Hey, David, did you check out the Spring side of it? So we have, like you said, a few maybe more straightforward examples as an initial cut, trying to prove out the fact that this whole thing is working and well-rounded. So it's sort of a way of checking compatibility. But the Spring Boot side or Spring Cloud side has more complex examples. Have you
Yeah,
and see that?
I didn't.
Okay.
I knew that I could go do that, but I didn't because, quite frankly, I felt like I don't have time for that. Like, I don't want to go over there and read all their stuff and try to figure out how is this translated into the streams code, and then how am I going to figure out how to use it? It's like, I just don't want to spend the time doing that. That's why I ended up just dropping streams and going with a different library, because I'm like, this library was documented, it's established, and they had exactly what I was going for. Like, they've clearly gone over, you know, more advanced examples, and it was like, when I read their getting started and when I read their more advanced stuff, it was like, yes, this is what I'm looking to do, and it's got to be an average thing. So no, I didn't, and I just actively chose not to go over and read all their stuff.
Would it have made a difference if we had something resembling like a table of contents and said, if you want to do this scenario, go there, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think if you picked out a few advanced use cases, real world use cases of using eventing, using, you know, event architecture between many services, and having multiple subscribers, right? And things like that, multiple consumers, those kinds of things. And, you know, you had the full example out there for that. I think that would really help.
Yes,
because at least I
definitely
can see.
in the plans to write more complex example. Now, if you don't mind, can you tell us what you ended up with, and if the kind of example that kind of speaks to what you were looking for? If you post a link to that, you know, we'll add an issue and create a sample around that.
Well, so I ended up on Easynet Q.
Gotcha.
Using it. Now, I want to say, though, that Easynet Q is not perfect. Easynet Q has the exact opposite problem that Streams does. It's been around so long that its approach and design is old, and they've adapted it to newer, you know, when .NET Core came around, when DI came around, you know, they've adapted it over to these things in the services collection and pipelines and all that. They've adapted it over, but they clearly have just adapted it. They haven't like rethought it, right, with this new way of programming, you know, writing C#. And so it's got its own problems. But in the end, when I went in to look at the getting started, and I went over to their, they publish all their docs in the GitHub docs. When I went over and looked at the table of contents, it's just right down the list. Yes, I want to publish. Yes, I want to subscribe. Yes, I want to do custom routing. And oh, I need to do some more advanced things here. Great. And I just picked each document off and said, this is what I want to do. Made some examples, used some of theirs, and I was up and going.
Okay, that's good feedback. Yeah, we'll definitely have some more work, and we're aware of that, to do around A, the documentation, and B, better samples. But yeah, there's something we hope to get to soon.
Cool. Okay. Well, for what it's worth, having now gone in depth, I've spent a lot of time with both of these, Easynet Q and Streams. I see all of the characteristics of Easynet Q, which has been around, you know, quite a while and has, you know, got a lot of features and stuff in it. I see all of the makings of that in Streams. I can see it. It's just, it needs to be formed. It needs to be refined, and it needs to be adapted to native C# things and a little less Spring type things.
Yeah, as far as feature compatibility, it should be fully compatible, as all of the test cases prove out with the Spring Cloud implementation. And so the Spring Cloud implementation, I know a lot of big companies use in a lot of places. So I'm sure you might have very well run into an edge case we haven't figured out, where it's not working, like things that are supposed to work aren't working. I'm not saying that's not possible, but I'm thinking at this point it's not for a lack of a thought on the features that should be available, but more on the documentation and providing an easy sample to pick up side.
Yeah,
My thought on it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a different approach, right? I'm not doing anything Spring Cloud. I don't care about Spring Cloud. I'm running an application in C#, everything that I'm doing, all my development is in the .NET ecosystem using C#, right? So I could care less about Spring Cloud or what they got
Well,
going on.
So to back up, Spring Cloud is an implementation of the canonical thought on integration patterns. And so all of the integration patterns that have been alongside, regardless of which features, which language you use, the enterprise integration book. So the Spring integration builds on that, and Streams builds on top of that. So there is an investment in the programming model that Spring Cloud Stream supports, and it is a big deal to have something in .NET to be compatible with that. Now, granted, that makes getting started really hard, but once you're started and you're a big company and you have a bunch of assets already written in Spring Cloud, it's a game changer. So that's where the kind of the key use case is, I think. But generally, like, we don't want only people who have Spring Cloud Stream and invested into that to use it. We want all .NET developers to use this. So your feedback is like crucial to making this better.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. It's like when I want to go look at best practices for consuming exceptions or try catches or attributes or things like that, I'm not going to Spring for that or some canonical thing. I'm going to Microsoft for that, right? And I'm following their stuff for tasks, for asynchronous programming. I'm following all of their models. And I have no idea how compatible they are or how much they care about Spring Cloud and what the patterns that are over there.
Gotcha.
So like I said, though, I don't want to be like super negative. Streams is new, right? It needs to grow up. And I'm just wondering, like, if you are hoping that Streams is going to be something consumed by .NET developers just wholly, right? As an option there, as a replacement to something like Easynet Q or something like that. I think it's on its way. It just needs to continue. Or if you're looking for, like you said, it's like, I'm looking for a shop that already has Spring Cloud that kind of follows those patterns, maybe using Spring Cloud data flow and things like that, but they have some C# to meld in with that, then, we want to make that easy. Then obviously that's just a bit of a different direction.
Okay, I think I
Anyway,
got most of
that's
that
me.
captured in the notes.
Yeah. You had to, sorry, I talk fast, but you had to have a challenge here. You were not going to get away with a meetup and just like spit out a few things in 20 minutes and be done. That ain't happening.
Thanks for that.
All right, now I'll shut up. Okay, I'm done.
No, thank you for your feedback, Dave. I mean, we appreciate it.
Can't have a community if people don't get engaged.
Cool.
So we do appreciate it.
True. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time, and we'll see you later.